Today I'm reacting to your wrestling hot takes. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether they're good or bad, about the current state of professional wrestling. So if you want to be featured in next week's Hot Takes video, make sure that you're following me on X. I ask for your hot take on there every single Friday after Smackdown. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. All right, let's read your stupid shit. Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes can only happen at WrestleMania. If it happens anywhere else, it would be predictable and ruin the feud. Couple of things that I want to point out here. I'm starting to think that by default, the only WrestleMania feud that makes sense right now for Cody Rhodes is Randy Orton. One that actually is a WrestleMania worthy feud that not only is it good in terms of star power today, but there's a lot of story and legacy from the past as well to make it even more fun and a bit more historically important. On top of that, it's almost process of elimination because I look at where Roman Reigns could land, and I don't think it's against Cody Rhodes again. I don't think that they do it 3 years in a row. It could be Cody versus The Rock, but I think when things unravel with this current storyline, we're going to find out that The Rock versus Roman Reigns is the one that makes the most sense for this year's WrestleMania. So when I look at the rest of the roster, to me, by default, I'm landing on Randy Orton. And, you know, when I typically say by default, it might necessarily be something I don't want, but this is something I desperately want. So I think it just makes sense. Let's just continue to steer the train in that direction. But I agree with you. I think WrestleMania is the best spot for it because it does create that aura of anything could potentially happen here, because if it does happen at Bad Blood, just some random PLE, there's no way that Cody Rhodes is losing on that show. So I agree with what you're saying here. Solo Sikoa is underrated. He's been doing an amazing job taking over the bloodline and deserves way more credit than what he's received. Look, I think that Solo is doing a fantastic job. I think that he's starting to get his flowers, but I do think that the criticism of Solo Sikoa leading into this was totally fair. I don't think that he felt like this true tribal chief. I don't think he felt like this main eventer. So when people were saying that, I don't think it was them underrating Solo Sikoa. I feel like it was a fair judgment on what was being presented on TV. Right now, if you were to tell me that Solo Sikoa just isn't main event worthy material, then I think, frankly, you're delusional because they are truly treating him like he is, and he is delivering as if he is. So is he underrated anymore? I don't think so. I feel like he's perfectly rated. I feel like the people that understand are giving him his flowers and already get that he has improved and that he deserves the praise that he should be getting right now. Jacob Fatu should have been in the WWE years ago and would have been a better tribal heir to take Roman Reigns' place. Look, when it comes to being the enforcer of the bloodline, in the couple of weeks that we've had Jacob Fatu, I've been far more sold on Jacob Fatu as the enforcer of the bloodline than Solo Sikoa ever was as the quiet, brooding guy with a thumb in the corner. Jacob Fatu is that guy. He is a combination of Umaga and Jeff Hardy. He is absolutely insane. Had Jacob Fatu been in the WWE before Solo Sikoa, I think you're right. I feel like we would be talking about Jacob Fatu leading this current iteration of the bloodline, not Solo Sikoa. So it is a matter of maybe he just got there a little bit too late, but I think eventually the cream will rise to the top. And frankly, right now it doesn't get creamier than Jacob Fatu. That guy's an absolute beast. That guy is impressing everyone left, right, and center. And yeah, those rumors that people were afraid backstage that he would upstage Solo Sikoa with how good he is, I get it. He's upstaging fucking everyone, not just Solo. Theory should have turned face tonight. It was the perfect moment for him. I agree with you. I also feel like this episode of Smackdown was missing something. It just sort of felt like we were walking through the paces up until we could get to the bloodline moment. And I feel like that's the big difference between Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown. It feels like Monday Night Raw, everything matters, not just the main event scene. In this episode of SmackDown and in previous episodes of SmackDown, it's just sort of felt like we're waiting for that main event segment, and that will be the one and only talking point of the entire episode. And it was no different here with, of course, the bloodline taking out Randy Orton and putting him through the table and making Cody Rhodes watch. But I feel like there's room to make other lasting moments aside from that one. And I think that Theory turning face here made a tremendous amount of sense. I'm concerned that they're going to hold off on this way too long to the point where it might lose its luster. But really, like at this point, Triple H could do whatever the hell he wants. And I'm just going to trust the process and see where it goes, even if it doesn't make sense. Like the Cole cash-in thing that happened at Money in the Bank. But hey, I'm here for it. But I want to see Austin Theory turn face. I think it's time. Maybe we're waiting for this to happen at SummerSlam. But look, sometimes it makes sense to pull the trigger. We don't have to do like super uber long-term storytelling for everything. Like if it's there, let's just do it. I 100% trust Triple H on his booking decisions. He keeps landing the plane, and people should stop saying, yes, that's nice, but what's next? And switch to, yeah, that's nice, and what's next? I absolutely think that you're right. I think that we should trust Triple H. At this point, Triple H has earned the ability to do whatever he wants because he's demonstrated time after time after time that he can absolutely land planes. He can take storylines exactly where they need to go. But that being said, just because we should trust where things are going to go doesn't mean that us fans, we shouldn't be critical and look at things with a critical lens and ask questions and ask, why are we doing things the way that we are? Because Triple H isn't perfect. Just because his track record shows that he has been perfect doesn't mean that the journey and the destination that he's perfect along the way. Let's look at, for example, Damian Priest's cash-in. Amazing, right? But the lead up to it, it was bad. It wasn't very good. But then now we have people saying, yeah, but see, you should have just let Triple H cook. But no, we can absolutely be critical and point out that the Three Stooges act of Damian Priest and the rest of the Judgment Day failing cash-in after cash-in after cash-in was just bad. The end result ended up being good, but we can absolutely be critical of the process, just like a lot of us are being critical of what happened with Drew McIntyre in the briefcase. I'm sure the end result will be just fine and fantastic, but just because we have trust in Triple H doesn't mean that we need to completely separate ourselves from being critical. WWE should have a proper statistics department to use during matches, capturing a whole range of data to do with in-ring performance. It was cool when they were using 2K ratings in the show, and it would open a whole new aspect of interest. Could start from a certain date. I think this is neat, and I did find it interesting seeing the 2K ratings when the game was coming out. I was like, oh, look, this guy's a higher rated guy than this guy. That's interesting. Like that was cool, but I feel like we have evidence that this just doesn't work. And that was with AEW. They tried to do it with the win-loss system. And then there comes a point where the wins and losses, even though AEW said matter, they stopped being a thing that mattered. And in the WWE, historically, unfortunately, wins and losses, the amount of them just don't matter. Look at Solo Sikoa going 0-97 or whatever it was, and now all of a sudden he's the main event guy. And I feel like when you boil things down to numbers and statistics, you can't make those pivots because the numbers and statistics just logically tell you that this pivot doesn't make sense. Like to make the pivot to make Solo Sikoa the top guy, the top heel in the WWE, the numbers would have been screaming, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Don't do this. But the WWE should have that creative ability to be able to weave around these numbers and statistics that ultimately don't matter to make the correct booking decisions as opposed to leaning on numbers. I get what you're saying. I think it's neat. I think it's interesting, but I don't think it should go beyond just showing like 2K ratings because then the WWE and booking and storytelling gets handcuffed to these numbers way too much. Julia and Stephanie Vaquer are going to be the two top women's wrestlers in all of WWE within the next half decade. It's kind of crazy to think about that out of like the last year's like top 3 women's free agents, WWE landed 2 of the 3 of them in Stephanie Vaquer, Julia. The only one they missed out on was Mercedes Moné, formerly Sasha Banks, who signed with AEW. The NXT women's division was already like packed and just so goddamn good. And now you add these two who, in terms of like in-ring performance, they are obviously already leagues ahead of what the WWE Performance Center athletes have been churning out, right? They'll need time to get accustomed to like WWE production and the way that they do things in North America and in the WWE system. But when it comes to in-ring, like these two are main roster ready. Like last year, they were main roster ready. But just having them in NXT to learn the system and then move on to the main roster, man, like the women's division across NXT and the main roster are just going to be so incredibly stacked. And when you add names like these, it's just further justification as to why we need to continue to expand women's wrestling by adding mid-card titles so that we aren't just focusing on either having main event feuds or putting women into random assortment of tag teams. Let's have these mid-card titles so that we can explore more singles runs within the women's division that aren't all main event caliber, world championship feuds.
Oh my God!
My God!
Do you hear the music?
I do! He's literally making a pizza! To this day, it's still infuriating how this ended. This is crazy. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I told you to go to that table.
Folks, that was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, which is available exclusively on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, you're going to be getting Edge versus Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22. A match involving a guy that makes pizza during his matches. The Undertaker versus Kurt Angle at No Way Out 2006. CM Punk versus John Cena at Raw 1000. And the famous Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest at Backlash 2023. You get all of this, including the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days early, the Raw reviews, Smackdown reviews, and more. So if you want all of that extra value, all of those videos that we simply cannot show on YouTube, come on over to patreon.com/SantiZap. I'll put the link in the description, or it'll be the link in the pinned comment. Come check it out. Even try just for 1 month. I'm confident that you're going to fall in love with it. Back to the video. Smackdown sucks. The only good part of it is the bloodline and Cody Rhodes. I don't think that Smackdown sucks, but it does suffer from a problem right now. And it's weird to say. We've talked about this before. It's the timing problem. There is just not enough time in this show to cover everything that the bloodline wants to cover, because that usually takes the most amount of time on a per segment basis on SmackDown, while still giving time for everything else to breathe. For example, on a Monday Night Raw, a feud like Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes would have been already far more fleshed out. On SmackDown, it's relegated to an empty arena conversation. These are the fundamental problems with SmackDown, which ultimately lead to much slower paced storytelling, because you can't hit every single storyline every single week like you can with Monday Night Raw. And what happens with that is that then you have undercooked feuds that all of a sudden aren't good enough to get on a PLE because they haven't had enough screen time to truly develop. That is right now the fundamental problem with SmackDown. And it's crazy to say, but the solution is to make this a 3-hour show. It really is. Raw has figured it out. Raw has figured out how to make a tight, really exciting 3-hour show, and there's no reason why they can't do that for SmackDown as well. Logan Paul's US title run is what everyone accused Roman's title reign of being. Bro, this is actually so facts. It was just on my live stream that somebody pointed out that Logan Paul has defended the US title twice in the 9 months that he's been champion, at Royal Rumble against Kevin Owens and at WrestleMania against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. So that is a total of 2 people, 2 WWE superstars that have gotten a chance at this mid-card title. 2 non-mid-card guys, by the way. So we're not even helping develop the mid-card of the WWE with this United States Championship, which is ultimately what it's designed to be. So that kind of sucks. I'm ready to see this Logan Paul Championship reign end ultimately. SmackDown needs to become 3 hours. It's such a weak show when it's 2 hours, and they can't build up stories like they do on Raw. They already do 3 hours in the arena. Make that last hour more TV time. Yeah, I don't really need to touch on this. I literally just made this entire argument. So, dude, I agree with everything that you're saying here. SmackDown at this point needs to go 3 hours. And SmackDown is going to USA Network, and USA Network is losing 3 hours of WWE programming when they lose Monday Night Raw to Netflix. If I'm USA, I don't want to lose that extra third hour of highly profitable ad space that WWE gives me. I would demand that SmackDown go 3 hours. So here's hoping that USA Network grabs WWE by the balls and demands that SmackDown go to 3 hours. Jacob should get a mid-card title this year. I know it's fast, but man, would it be insane for everyone around Solo to have gold except Solo until the big throwdown for the WWE Championship. I'm with you, and I had already predicted that the Bloodline are going to win the tag titles, and they've clearly marked DIY as maybe a potential next hit for them in the most recent episode of SmackDown. So this is where the accusations of the script start to come in. But yes, if you are wanting to treat this Bloodline like a serious threat, then I think in terms of the context of WWE and the competition behind WWE, gold is the way to announce to the world that you're at the top of the mountain. And Solo, referenced the old bloodline, how they had all of the gold. Maybe this is him calling a shot that this new bloodline is also going to go after all the gold. The WWE writing team absolutely have internet wrestling community accounts. I might be a WWE writer. A lot of people seem to think that I'm a WWE industry plant because of how fast my accounts have grown. Maybe I am too. CM Punk and the Drew feud is the best storyline in WWE right now. I'd argue even better than the Bloodlines. It goddamn better be the best storyline going on in the WWE if they're willing to burn the entire Money in the Bank briefcase for it. It better freaking be the best storyline going on. Look, I'm still salty over it because, like I keep saying in the analogy, they basically just poured gasoline on an already existing statewide forest fire. But yeah, I agree. Like, in terms of what makes a feud like a traditional, like, exciting wrestling feud, a feud that makes you excited to see somebody get beat up, this is it. This is the one that we've been waiting for. This is a feud that the WWE has really failed to make happen in recent years, and they finally have figured it out. And it took, world-class caliber talents to really make it work in Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. I agree. This is the best feud in wrestling. Cena should 100% win a world title during his final run. He has to, right? And even if it's not just for him, I feel like the WWE should do it just to erase Ric Flair from the history books. I feel like the WWE would prefer their modern day mascot and John Cena to be the flag bearer of the GOAT status and not share it with Ric Flair, who was not a full-fledged WWE guy ever really in his career. Most of his world titles were outside of the WWE. So if I'm the WWE, I want the WWE guy to be at the top of the mountain. It's going to happen. Even if Cena doesn't want it, the WWE is going to make sure that their Mickey Mouse, their John Cena, is the guy standing alone and not sharing that throne with Ric Flair. Rhea shouldn't win the title at SummerSlam. Liv is absolutely killing it right now, and the storyline with Judgment Day still has a lot to offer. If Rhea wins, it's over. Like, that's it. Like, there's no coming back for Liv there. It's a one-off storyline. So I'm kind of with you. And if I'm going to add even more wrinkles, let's just have Dominic Mysterio screw over Rhea Ripley to really make this into a proper blood feud going into Bad Blood. I think that Liv Morgan could and should win. Jimmy's return needs to happen soon, or else it's going to be overshadowed by Roman. I didn't think of this. I didn't think about the possibility of Jimmy returning, there being excitement, and then Roman immediately coming back and basically shitting on that excitement that we had about Jimmy Uso returning, to the point where now I'm thinking that Roman comes back with Jimmy. Like, they just come back together, which I know immediately puts Jimmy in the background, but he's always been in the background, and I don't think that the WWE has any plans to make him into a forefront character like they did with Jey Uso. Blair Davenport needs to rack up more wins. She's had 2 matches on the main roster and lost both. How is that supposed to sell the audience on new talent? Their treatment of Blair Davenport has been really weird because she's getting all of these backstage segments where she adds like a badass, like she's like this big nuisance and this big game changer in the WWE. And before her entrances, she's getting these hype packages and vignettes like she is this game changer, and then she goes out there and loses. It's very odd. Like, the presentation and the results just are not really cohesive here. It's very confusing, and I think a lot of us are confused with their treatment of Blair Davenport. She's got to rack up some W's soon. All right, folks, thank you so much for submitting in your hot takes for this week. I'm done. Get out of here.